Thanks very much, Paul. Hi, ladies and gentlemen, and most especially hi to our first-timers here. You guys rock. I'm going to hopefully share with you a little bit of our solar eclipse experience that was kind of unique to our particular permutation of it. Three of us left the GTA to head to Nebraska, despite the t-shirt. And we thought that we would have a nice road trip, and if the weather closed in and things went south, and as well, we'd still have some good stories to tell when we came back. So Peter Richards left from his home in Etobicoke, and Connie and I left from our place in Oakville. A few hours before we were supposed to push off, very early one morning, I realized that the 12-volt wet cell battery that powers my rig had not been charged. I had been using it a couple of nights before in the backyard testing some equipment, and the battery charger was outside, so I had to go and rescue my battery charger and charge my battery overnight before we left. And, oh, it's upside down. There you go. Well, what you can't see is the battery charger is at the top. It should be at the bottom. I don't know how that happened. It was fine at home. And that's a skunk. so I don't know what the skunk was doing, but the battery charger is black and white. There may have been some amorous intent, you never know. I rescued the battery charger, got my battery charged overnight, and we left shortly after 6 o'clock in the morning. I think, Peter, you pushed off about the same time. At 5:30, half an hour before we pushed off, I looked down our street towards the eastern horizon, and this is what I saw just as we were pushing off on our eclipse trip. Isn't that lovely? That's a 7% illuminated old moon, lots of earth shine, and that's a brilliant Venus above it. And I don't know if you can see it with this projector, but to the left of Venus we have, is it Castor and Pollux in Gemini? Yep. Yes, the two bright stars, and lower down in that V-shaped sky we have some early morning cloud, and also, to help us go, the first pink caress of dawn. We were heading to Nebraska, as I said, ignore the t-shirt, well into the Midwest. It's the Cornhusker state, and our intention was to leave the GTA and go all the way to Lincoln, Nebraska, where we had reservations in some hotels. We were actually meeting up with some other RASC members from Mississauga. We were going to plan exactly where we're going to go in Nebraska the evening before the eclipse. Peter and I think we were talking about perhaps settling in a little community in Nebraska called the city of Falls City. I'm sorry, it's cut off a little bit. The city of Falls City, I think, has a population of about 5,000 people. Now, why would we want to go there, apart from the fact that it's in the path of totality? Well, we actually had an invitation from Gary Jorn, the city manager in this community, to set up on the front lawn of City Hall. Large lawn. The largest building around was about 1.5 stories. Pretty cool. If we set up there, we'd have comfortable surroundings, we'd have washrooms, we'd have air conditioning. We also had a personal invitation from the manager of the municipal airport, Brenner Field. You can't get a much better 360-degree horizon than an airport, I can tell you that. Also, we'd have the use of facilities and so forth at the airport. When I was talking to the airport manager, he said, "Oh yeah, come on over, because we have people flying in from other parts of the States to watch the eclipse from their airport." First day, Peter, Connie, and I managed to make our way all the way to Peru, Illinois, which is more than halfway to Lincoln, the state capital of Nebraska. Peru, Illinois, it's not a big community. It's about 20 minutes from the large Illinois River, one of the feeders into the Great Mississippi. And I think we were about 1 hour and 10 minutes from the Mississippi, and perhaps 1 hour and 20 minutes from Des Moines, Iowa, when we stopped. One of the things that we enjoy about road trips is the different experiences. Some of them are subtle, some of them are not so subtle. Connie wanted to have a local dish, a local Midwest dish. That will come up shortly. We're going to get to this. Actually is the view outside of our motel room. You can tell you're in the Midwest because there was corn everywhere. At one point, as we were driving through Illinois, the corn started at the edge of the interstate and went all the way to the horizon. I'm kidding you. I'm not kidding you. And on the other side of the interstate, and again, I'm not kidding you, it was soybeans all the way to the horizon. So getting back to Connie's dish. I don't know who recommended this, Peter. Was it the waitress? But she ended up with catfish on a mountain of corn nibbles. And I mean a mountain of corn nibbles. Of course, her catfish didn't quite look like that. It was filleted, and it was breaded, and it was fried. But the mountain of corn was absolutely tremendous. She did enjoy it. I thought I would play it safer. I had French fries. I made the mistake, however, of asking for vinegar. I couldn't find it on the table. Well, this is one of those subtle differences. And that's when the waitress looked at me as if I was from Mars. Didn't say anything. She went away, and a couple of minutes later she came back, right, Peter, with a little finger bowl. And she put it on the table in front of me, and in the finger bowl there were 2 or 3 tablespoons of vinegar sloshing around. So this guy from another country takes his French fries and dips them in. Enjoys his French fries. Little did I realize that out there in that part of the country, people don't do vinegar. And I would think that the locals in that restaurant were probably looking at me, much like all you guys are looking at this catfish right now. Connie wanted to get a selfie in Peru. There's not much to see, so she took a selfie with the Peru water tower. Now, Connie's actually abroad right now. Don't tell her I showed this picture.
It's on YouTube.
She's also told me her lawyer is not afraid of my lawyer. One of the things that we were doing, and I know anyone that was involved in the Eclipse was doing this, every second breath you were checking the weather. As soon as we got to Peru, Illinois, bang, we were checking the weather. The weather in Nebraska had been sort of iffy for a few days, but the day before we left, it was really improving. Off we go. We're more than halfway to Lincoln. Things started going south. So Peter and I had a very intense strategizing session in the hotel room, and we decided that we were going to play the odds. We had reservations in Nebraska. We tried to get rooms down in the southeast, down where the weather looked pretty good. We ended up in Ardmore, Tennessee, hence the t-shirt. Thanks to Peter's wife, she managed to get us a room in Ardmore. We tried to get rooms through booking services, but they were overwhelmed because everyone that was driving out west for the Eclipse was doing the same thing. And in a 27-minute phone call with this booking service, we saw the rooms go from $75 up to over $300. And the reason they were going up was every time we tried to book the room, we said, yeah, okay, book those 2 rooms. They would try to book it, and it would come back, hotel has now just filled. And so they'd go to the next highest, and the next highest, and the next highest. So we ended up over $300 plus taxes, plus service fees. And the service fee for their booking service went up at least once during that phone call. We ended up pulling the plug on it when they got north of $300. And Liz Richards in Etobicoke with her laptop, she came through for us. God bless her. So we ended up in Ardmore. Where the heck is Ardmore? We'd never heard of Ardmore. Well, Ardmore is not very big. It's a population of about 1,000. In fact, you can't go any farther south in Tennessee. The south end of Ardmore is in Alabama. You can actually walk down a street in Ardmore on the north side and be in Tennessee, and when you cross the road and walk down the other sidewalk, you're in Alabama. So, if you notice what happened here, we basically drove right through the path of totality to get to the south side of it. It was kind of odd. We didn't really expect to be there, but as it turns out, we think it worked really to our advantage because the south didn't have a lot of people driving north to the Eclipse. The north had a lot more population, people driving south to the Eclipse. In fact, we enjoyed a very pleasant, the font's even showing differently through this projector. We had a very pleasant 2-hour drive through rural Tennessee to get to Sparta, Tennessee, where we decided we were going to set up shop. It was basically smack in the middle of totality. This is actually the drive up to Sparta from Ardmore. Very early in the morning, you can see lovely morning mist starting to break up, going through some of the valleys in that lovely rural countryside. This is probably the busiest route we went along, heading up to Sparta. We had heard from an Ontario fellow who came down from Kentucky that he was stuck in an 8-mile traffic jam. He had driven all the way from Tavistock, Ontario to experience the total solar eclipse. And the traffic was so bad in Kentucky, he ended up pulling off somewhere to catch as much of the eclipse as he possibly could. And after all that drive, he didn't get 2.5 minutes, he got 30 seconds. So we had a lovely drive up. We noticed that certainly we're in the Bible Belt. What's the Bible Belt? The U.S. Bible Belt is a socially conservative, evangelical Protestant society where the church plays, and the church and religion plays a very large part in society and politics. Look at the attention the Trump administration, for example, is paying to the Christian right. One of the subtle things that I noticed when I was down there was that when you have a short conversation with someone, it doesn't end with, have a nice day, Sean. It's, have a blessed day. And if it's not have a blessed day, Charlene, it's have a blessed day, y'all. Continuing on in the Bible Belt theme, the first site we decided to check out in Sparta, population 5,000, was a church. And this is it. Lovely lot, but the sight lines leave a little bit to be desired. Well, we decided to push on. I think that was pretty well unanimous, Peter. We were going to another site. We missed the turnoff completely and ended up out in the country, which isn't hard when the community is only a few thousand. We did a 180 on this rural route to turn around to go back and try and find the place we were looking for. We saw this church. Here's this Bible Belt theme again. A little tent was getting set up on the front lawn. We decided to investigate, and lo and behold, there was a cardboard sign there, hand-lettered, Eclipse parking, $5 a car. Look at that front lawn. Now, the back parking lot, which is where we ended up, Peter, is like that. It's much like that first site that we turned our noses up at. But when you turn around and you look south towards the sun, this is part, and only part, of their backyard. Look at that sky. Isn't that glorious? And here's the other part of their backyard. They had 200 people in there by the time everyone rolled in. Peter and I were doing outreach from basically the second we got telescopes out. Everyone had solar viewers. We had the only telescopes there. We both had piggyback rigs. We had an SCT, we had a couple of refractors, and we had a hydrogen alpha telescope. And you can see from the timestamp here, it's 11:19. It's still about 40 minutes from first contact. We're already set up. And beside my rig there on the left, there's a cute little pink step stool. That tells me that we were already doing outreach because there's a cute pair of little twins next door to us that you can't see who had to bring over their step stool to look through the telescope. But we really got busy. We had literally hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of different views through all the telescopes, sometimes two people per rig, because everyone wanted to see, well, what's happened now? I haven't been here for 5 minutes. I must look again. And then they look in the hydrogen alpha, and then they look in the white light. And back and forth, back and forth. You know you're in the Bible Belt when you see a sign like this. Wash your hands and say your prayers, because Jesus and germs are everywhere. Peter hard at work with some of his public. Peter worked very hard, and he was actually a cheerleader for the audience as we were getting towards totality. Peter, God bless him, he was telling people, keep the glasses on, keep the glasses on, keep the glasses on. This is what's going on, that's what's going on. Okay, take them off now. People loved it. Because we happened to be there, we lucked into being there. Also, they lucked into having someone there that knew a little bit about what's going on, and it worked very well for everyone. It was a situation where 1 + 1 did equal 3 for everyone. A young man looking through my rig. Look at that sky, it was gorgeous. And I was telling you that sometimes we had 2 people per scope. There's an example. Our host in the middle, Pastor Jamie Keith McCormick. Lady on the left flew in from Belgium with her family. Young lad on the right drove all the way from Los Angeles. And there's those little honeys just being in the state park. They were junior rangers now. Managed to come back with a few pictures, but you've seen those before. Now, America is a place that's built on business, and everyone wants to be in on the eclipse. Oh, we had 2 minutes, 38.6 seconds. Getting back to business, everyone wants to be in on the eclipse. There you go. Thank you very much. There being no questions? Excellent.
Oh,
No, we have a question. Oh, sorry.
Did they waive your $5 parking fee?
No, well, in the sense, mine was waived because my new best friend Peter paid for Connie and I. All right, well, thank you again, everyone.
Next presenter, Joel. Is that right? Perfect. Joel, nice to meet you. We have some new presenters here. That's great to see. Go ahead.
All right, so I'm going to give just a short report on my expedition to St. Louis, Missouri. Has anybody else in the RAS? Did anybody else go to St. Louis to see the eclipse? You? Somewhere there. Okay. Was anybody in Bowling Green, Kentucky? No. Okay.
I was east of Hopkinsville.
Yeah. Cool. All right, so that was the location we're at. The names don't show up so well due to the lighting, but there's St. Louis. Half the city was in the path of totality. We stayed in a hotel, Wentzville, Missouri, just in the path of totality. Amazing that I was able to book this just a week before the eclipse, and there were still rooms available in totality. But I wanted to get a longer totality. I think at my hotel it was about a minute or so. So we drove down to St. Clair, Missouri. This is a little zoomed in, a little park there called, I forgot what it was called, but we got, if you can see there, 2 minutes, 39.6 seconds. So that's pretty nice. So we made a road trip out of it, just like Jeff. We left from Toronto. We stayed at some cousins of ours in Detroit, Michigan. And we left Saturday night, stayed in a hotel in, that would be Fort Wayne, Indiana, again. And then on Sunday we drove down, I think it was a good 5-hour drive down to St. Louis and spent it all time on Sunday in St. Louis. And just like Jeff, as we were driving through Indiana, cornfields and flat horizons everywhere. And then the next morning we made our way over to St. Clair to see the eclipse. As we were driving, I don't know if you can see this. This is the turnoff to St. Louis, and this is the 57 that takes you down to Carbondale, which is where the location of the greatest eclipse. And we see this Toyota Highlander chalked on the back. It says "Totality or Bust." So I made sure to snap a picture of that. We went right, and he went left. This is we had a nice day on Sunday in St. Louis. This is an Indian restaurant, St. Louis, totally vegetarian, all kosher. Worked out great for us, and that's my family enjoying ourselves at the restaurant. This is a science center in St. Louis, in Forest Park, which is the site of the 1904 World Fair, St. Louis. So as you drive around the park, they've got free admission to Science Center there, to a history museum there, to an art museum there, a zoo, all free admission, and it's all about the 1904 World Fair. They're very proud of that, as well as their Gateway Arch. And in the Science Museum, you get to build a Gateway Arch yourself and place the keystone. So that was that, as well as this is the Mississippi River. These are boat tours. We didn't take the boat tour, but I thought I'd get a good picture of it with my second youngest daughter. And these were the boats that went from New Orleans all the way up to St. Louis and back, back in the mid-1800s. Now that's our party, waiting for totality. This is already in the eclipse. Everybody's got their glasses with them, and we are ready for totality. So I wasn't planning to take any pictures. I wanted to actually just get the eclipse in. But as soon as the eclipse happens, you feel compelled to take a picture. So I hadn't practiced with any of the settings on the camera. So I took a picture, and this is what I get. And I'm sure a lot of people have the same experience. You're all washed out. So turn down the little knob to the compensation for the exposure. Turned it down by 2 notches. Boom, beautiful. Obviously, in real life, it's even nicer than that, but I'm pretty proud. And that's actually the reason I'm giving this presentation, just so I can show you a beautiful picture and this is just for the automatic settings on the camera. So nothing except for just turning down compensation to -2, and you can get that. just with a normal micro sensor digital camera. And then the next day we drove back. This is Cahokia Mounds, just outside. This is the site of a native city, really. At the time it was larger than the city of London. This is in about the 11 or 1200s. Today it's this mountain, you can climb up to the top. This is what the city would have looked back then. And these are, that's my youngest one, climbing all the way to the top of the mountain. And just outside, this is the binoculars that we use to look at the eclipse. So we decided to take a look at some deer in the background, and that's with my iPhone through the binoculars. So that's another cool trick I learned, that if you want to hold your binoculars really carefully and get the iPhone. It took me a few tries to do it, but it's pretty cool how you can actually get a nice shot through the binoculars. What did we learn? We learned that if you lower the exposure on your camera, you can get a great shot of the eclipse without having to play too much with the settings. And solar eclipses are amazing. It's great fun. Thank you.
Any questions for Joel? One up there. Can't see him?
Up two. Yep.
What camera did you use?
It's a Fujifilm. I think it's T100 or something 100. It's like the older version of their micro 3/4. I gave the exact specs, but that's about it. And one more there.
Yeah, I was actually in St. Louis as well.
Oh, cool.
And it was my first total eclipse. So
Same here.
okay, one of the it's maybe a bit of a rookie question, but one of the interesting things I found was how unique the corona was versus pictures I'd seen from previous eclipses. And then other pictures that came in from across the country were very similar. I had this idea in my mind that it would be like a fluctuating thing. So I wasn't sure what determines the shape of the corona from eclipse to eclipse.
That's a good question. Yeah, I did. The picture actually doesn't do justice. When you're actually looking at it in real life, you see that corona. Is there any? I don't know. Is there any? Does anybody know why the corona spreads in any one direction in particular?
Well, it has to do with the solar activity. The more solar activity going on, the bigger.
Yeah, there was a really nice corona. I did notice just with my naked eye, you can see it spreading a good few degrees in either direction. Maybe it was clouds I was seeing, but I'm pretty sure it was the corona. So, all right. Any other questions? Oh, one more? Yeah.
What did the kids take from there? Your children, what did they?
Oh yeah, they thought the trip was lots of fun. My littlest one, the littlest one is 1.5, so she wasn't old enough to know to put the glasses on. So we turned her stroller around. It seems to me she was oblivious to what was going on. She might have noticed it was getting a little darker, but the other kids all understood and they all made sure to use the glasses. I didn't show it in the presentation, but I do because it's you don't really get much. I have a video of them all looking at it, and my little daughter, the one that you see in one of the other pictures, is looking like this, and then she takes her thing away, and then she goes like this. You know, she's doing it with the glasses. She takes away the glasses, and then a second later she looks up just instinctively with her bare eyes. Mm-hmm. So you got to really be on top of them. That's, I guess, what we learned. Mm-hmm. It's so easy for them to just forget to use the glasses, but they all thought it was pretty amazing. All right. And I think no more questions, eh?
Yeah, we're good.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Joel, for sharing your experience with us. And our next speaker is Richard Blackman.
Like most people, I decided pretty much at the last minute to go down. I made our hotel reservations about 2 weeks in advance of the trip, and if you pay for them, you can cancel up to the day before at no charge. So we just, like everyone else, were watching the weather. We were going to the NOAA websites, looking at the cloud charts and the covers and the predictions, and it just kept getting better and better. And we decided that we were going to go down to south of Bowling Green, Kentucky. You were asking about if anybody went to Bowling Green. We went through Bowling Green to a little place, it's right there, called Franklin, Kentucky. Now the reason I went to Franklin, Kentucky, will be apparent in a minute, and this presentation has to do with the ups and downs of the trip. So here's the downs, big down, was going from Toronto all the way down to Franklin. We stopped overnight just north of, yes, okay. So you go through Louisville, and Bowling Green is about right here. So we stayed a little bit north in Elizabethtown, got up in the morning, and then drove down to Franklin. As you can see, 11 hours, 12-hour drive, very optimistic, because there was a ton of construction, and we were held up easily for a couple of hours in Cincinnati on the highway. It was really, really something, but you know, we got in and we enjoyed it. The reason we went to Franklin was they had a big party at the drive-in. And the night before, the night before they have music, they have dinner parties, they have concerts in the square, they have merchants out of this world sales. They had a free movie, E.T. that night, all kinds of stuff, lots of distillery stuff, obviously, Solar Eclipse of the Heart Music Festival. So we said, okay, gotta go to the party, we've gotta go to the drive-in in Franklin, this is awesome. So we get to Franklin, and there must be a 200-300 car lineup all the way down this street to get into the drive-in. Well, guess what? Kentucky Downs Racetrack is right here with an empty parking lot. And they are charging $10 to drive in. But it may not be apparent from the photo. There's trees lining all the parking spots. And let me tell you, when it's 38, 39 degrees out and there's no shade, it gets pretty hot. We got one of the very, very last spots under the trees in the shade in Franklin. And there we are. Things are looking up. We've got shade, we got grass. You can see the trees, nice people. A lot of really interesting folks there having a good time. This is my camera setup, and I'll show you that in just a second. Very basic. This is it. This is, whoops, this is funny. This is a 35-day-old Sony camera mated to a 35-year-old Olympus zoom lens. See what happens when you never throw anything out. It actually comes around. Now, the cool thing was, I made this neat little solar finder. This is an old box. You probably recognize it from a laptop power supply that got fried. So I took everything out, just kept the plastic box, put a little pinhole in this end. The other back end here, where the big AC line used to go in, there's a square hole, so I put a piece of wax paper there, and I glued on a little hot shoe thing, so I could slide it right into the hot shoe of my camera and point it and get the sun centered on it, because I did not have a proper solar filter that fitted on the end of my lens. So I did not want to take my lens cap off when the camera was pointed towards the sun. There's photos on the internet of people with fried cameras, right? Melted sensors and everything. Now, the buddy I went down with, he had bought a solar filter for his camera, but he had to hold it in front of the lens. Okay, it's circular with a big tab, like a little handle on it. You had to hold it in front of the lens, so I would borrow it. So this is a little photo tango that we would do. My friend, had a front of the lens that I centered the sun in the solar finder, held the filter in front of the lens, took off the lens cap, took the photo, put the lens cap back on, gave the filter back to my friend, over and over and over. If you're interested in, somebody was asking about the technical stuff, I don't know, I keep pressing the wrong button here, it's too exciting. ISO 200, these are things I just got out of like Sky and Telescope magazine and went to the Sony website and went to the Nikon website. They had whole pages on how to photograph eclipses. So f8, 1/250th. Now the nice thing about my camera is that when it's all on manual, because the lens is a manual lens. It won't work with the camera unless it's on manual. You can bracket the exposures. You can set the camera up to take 5 pictures in one shot. So you press the button and it goes bang, 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 bang. Below, slightly below, on, slightly above, and way above the set exposure. So you get 5 brackets. Very nice. And it's also good, you didn't have to touch the camera because I had an electric little cable release, which is always good. And of course, prayer helps, being in the software. So these are the kind of pictures that I got out of that cobbled together setup with the new Sony camera and the old lens. And if you look carefully, you could have seen in some of the other pictures that other people had, there's those 3 sunspots right there. And you can also see, it's really hard to see, but I think right there, there's 2 sunspots right there. Anyway, as soon as totality occurred, I could take the lens cap off and just do regular photos. And that's a typical photo that I got through my put together setup. And what's really cool is that you can, oops, hang on. One day I'll get it. You can see the little prominences. There's these solar prominences that peek out from around the limb of the moon. And you can see the filaments and everything coming up out of the corona. Very nice. And then waiting for the diamond ring, got that, and then immediately put the lens cap right back on so I wouldn't damage the sensor in the camera. So this is what it looked like during totality. My friend took this picture. You can see the 360-degree sunset. Anywhere you look around, you can see the sunset. Really, really nice. Now these folks were down from Chicago, and we were kind of friendly with them. They had a whole tailgate thing going on here with wine and cheese and all kinds of stuff. Really cool. You know, it's always good to hang out with the folks who know what they're doing. And again, here's my camera, and here's the little cable release. You can see it's in my hand. So I'm taking constant pictures. I probably took about 200 or 300 pictures just watching. I've got my binoculars that we were looking. I passed the binoculars around to these folks. They would really, really, really like that. They had no idea what was going on. Now, somebody was talking about traffic. We got out really fast after the eclipse. We missed the traffic, but I understand there was easily a 6-hour traffic jam going through Bowling Green, Louisville, all that kind of stuff after. So we decided, we stayed overnight, and another down, we went to Mammoth Caves National Park, which is the largest underground cave system in the world, with over 400 in the US miles of cavern. And this is some of the stalactites that you can see coming down, and just for perspective, these are people walking down the ramps, and we're probably, I don't know, 100, 150 feet below the surface at this point. And that was really a lot of fun. And we missed the traffic, and we came home the next day. So we left on the Sunday morning, stayed overnight Sunday night, saw the eclipse Monday, went to the Corvette Museum Monday afternoon, because they build Corvettes in Bowling Green. That's where the Corvette assembly plant is. Now you can take a tour, but the tour, the last tour, was 1:30, and the eclipse ended around 1:30. So we could not get back from Franklin to get on the tour, but we went to the Corvette Museum, and the only interesting thing in the Corvette Museum actually was they had a huge sinkhole open up inside the museum because of all these caves everywhere, and these 8 Corvettes fell into this huge hole. And they pulled them out with cranes, and they're on display, and they're mangled and they're destroyed, and it's really, really cool. And they filled it in with cement, and I wanted to get out of there. So that is basically the end, except the people who are, just reminds me, the people who were in our area, everybody thought it was really cool that you could see, you know, the little moons, you know, coming through the trees and car bumpers and cars. And so somebody wanted me to take their photograph with their camera. I said, sure, I'll take your photograph. So he's standing there and said, no. Back up a little bit. No, back up a little more. And he had all the little half moons all over him. Took the picture, and he totally thrilled. So, that was my very excellent eclipse adventure, and thanks for looking, and I'll answer any questions if there are questions.
That's great. My question is, what was the focal length of that old Olympus
200
lens?
millimeters.
Sorry?
200.
So then is there a crop factor, or?
I did crop a little bit of the outside.
No, but I mean, did the camera automatically give a 1.5? Like, was it acting like a 300? Or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because of the sensor size.
Okay, gotcha.
That's right.
And final question, what method did you use to focus? Like, did you have to use
Infinity.
Okay.
Infinity at f8. Figured it took care of all things, you know. And yeah, I didn't want to look through the, fidget with the camera, and there was no reason to do anything else. And basically the bracketing, when you put that lens on the new camera, it acts, you're right, very similar to a 300 millimeter lens, but it goes automatically to f8 for some reason. With the coupler, the adapter puts it on f8. It's really an f4.5 lens. If you put it on an old Olympus camera, it's going to be a 4.5. But for some reason, the way the pins are set up on the coupler, it takes it to f8. So I just left it there and then bracketed on both sides. Yeah. Yes?
What Sony camera?
That's a 6000, Alpha 6000. So it's excellent. I just can't believe how good a camera is. It's unbelievable. On sale, Best Buy, open box, almost half price. And when it arrived, it was all sealed up. It was not an open box. It had all the proper stickers and everything on it. I just was thrilled. Anyway, anybody else? No? Good stuff. Okay, thank you.